As things in the UCC returned to normal, the ultra-conservative Catholic and Southern Baptist Christlanders prepared to take total control of the government. This led the more liberal Pentecostals and Methodists to fear that they'd be cut out of representation. Everhart came to the uncomfortable recognition that if things continued going the way they were headed, Glory would eventually wind up top dog, especially since Glory had also enjoyed the fierce loyalty of the ghastly keepers. In light of these circumstances, Everhart reconsidered his path forward. Initially, there'd been a sense that Everhart would respond badly to the new nation's withdrawal, but he never lost his composure. On the contrary, as he gazed out over the placid bays, Everhart calmly addressed his cabinet. I'm going to do something that hasn't been done in a while. I'm going to level with them. He'd made the decision to address the entire church state in a live satellite broadcast. On the appointed date, the High Deacon of Corpus Christi made the introduction and Everhart began his broadcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the President of the United Congregations of Christland.
Let's start right here. At this very moment, all over Iowa, Louisiana, Florida, Kentucky, and everywhere else, the church harvest is rotting in the fields. At the same time, Texas oil stays untapped in the ground. Why? Because we don't have enough workers to get the job done. Meanwhile, Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, New York are humming along like the well-oiled machines they are. How are we supposed to compete with that? I'll tell you how. We don't. We eliminate the competition. Never forget that the aforementioned cities are all located within the sacred borders of the holy UCC. The resources used to bring their products to market, from the raw materials to the roads, rails, and bridges they use, are paid for by your tithes. Those profits belong to you. I'm speaking to the inhabitants of the aforementioned cities when I say, these resources shall be redeemed. I know we all wonder the same thing. How did we get here? I'll tell you how. Religion. That's right, you heard me. I didn't say God. I said religion. Let's get one thing straight. Most of us inherited our religion. It was passed down to us, like our names and our granddaddy's ears. We were whatever our parents were. They were Baptists, so we got baptized, and so on. That's what we think happened, but that's not the truth. The truth is, we didn't inherit our religion. It was taught to us, the same way as any other subject is taught. That's why we called it Sunday school. We learned the parables and allegories that convinced us of the righteousness of good and the perils of evil. But the real lesson was, indoctrination plus submission equals salvation. We were taught that we serve the one and only true God. Obey him and good things will happen. Turn on him and bad things will follow. The reason you're mad is because you played by the rules. You worked hard, you told the truth, you were kind and generous. And you did those things because you believed that if you did them, you'd be rewarded. You were good, and therefore life was supposed to be good in return. But as you got older and experienced the real world, you learned a different lesson. You learned that the people you ran into every day didn't play by the same rules you did. Didn't matter how generous or loyal you were. They took your kindness for weakness, and they kept asking for more, all the time not honoring your value in the least. Well, let me tell you something. No one has been more guilty of this than the church. After years of you good people faithfully delivering your first fruits to the workmen, your reward is to now see your own storehouses bare and empty. Now, you can plainly understand that the institutions that offered you Santa Claus and Easter eggs in return for your faithfulness have been playing you for suckers. Yes, I'm guilty too, I admit it. In my defense, I can only say that I was fooled the same as you were. I was brought up in the church too, just like most of you. But we're not children anymore. We're living in a time when the socialists have weaponized your faithfulness against you. They know you've been taught to turn the other cheek. They know you were taught that in order to lead, you must first be a servant. So, after you took all the responsibility of managing the affairs of the colored people, teaching them to read, giving them jobs and the opportunity to live in a civilized society, what did they do? Instead of being grateful, they took your goodwill and turned it against you. Today, their industries prosper and your interests fail. They've become the master and you've become the slave. In light of this reality, what shall you now believe? Will you continue after promises of pie in the sky by and by? Or will you put your trust in the here and now? Hear me now when I say, there is no pie in the sky. This is the pie. This is the sky. But to enjoy it, you have to be willing to die to yesterday and be born again in a new, true light. There's no time left. Let every beating heart within the sound of my voice know and understand. The end of white rule is not coming. It's here. As members of the Greater Church of the United Congregations of Christland, you enjoy a prime seat at the table. Your seat is important. As citizen believers of this mighty congregation, you enjoy one of the highest standards of living ever achieved by any empire in the history of the world. Now, suddenly, after we've done all the heavy lifting, all the dying and innovating to establish this economy, this continent, these ungrateful, ill-advised socialists have come along to claim it. Make no mistake, if we don't stop them now, we'll never get another chance. Their numbers and treasuries multiply by the hour. But I can still put a stop to the situation. It will take strong medicine, and once I administer it, you will need to withstand the worst criticisms. But let whomever say what they will will thank us in the end. Now let me say, we know there are spies among us. So let any who disagree remember this. If the heathens get the upper hand, everything we did to them, they're going to do to you. There are many whites living and working in the cities I've mentioned. My advice to you is, get out now. But if you stay, remember this. We will not forgive those who trespassed against us. There is nothing that will save you from the wrath of God. Later, when asked if he was threatening to nationalize non-white industries, Everhart had no comment. But Everhart had no intention of doing anything of the sort. He wasn't interested in Detroit or Atlanta. As far as he was concerned, he already controlled those places. He had something very different in mind. His gambit depended on the success of Operation Seventh Seal. His negotiating tool was a crew of keepers currently manning a Yasin-class Soviet-era attack submarine in the North Pacific. To evade deep-sea sonar sensors, the craft was submerged to a depth of a mere 100 feet. Sitting just beneath the surface, situated between the Hawaiian Islands and the California coast, the fully operational warship awaited orders. Everhart didn't need an entire fleet in order to obtain his objective. A single sub would suffice for the purpose at hand. Kellogg had Crimean operatives buy the sub on the Russian black market. He'd paid several million above the asking price to ensure its delivery. Immediately after the keeper crew took possession of the submarine, the Crimean were killed. Kellogg believed submarines worked best when they were leak-proof. The sub-silos were outfitted to accommodate 8 Trident Mk5 ballistic missiles, each with a 10-megaton warhead. Since 1 megaton could destroy 4 square miles, 10 would be enough to neutralize major infrastructure while also providing a strident deterrent to resistance. There would also be enough environment remaining in the aftermath to ensure rebuilding. With a range of over 3,000 miles, the Mk5 missiles could easily hit any major city in the new nation. The missiles could reach their targets in less than 20 minutes, therefore there'd be no time to respond. The sub also had the ability to stay submerged for more than 3 months. That was more than enough time for Everhart to put the remainder of his plan into effect.